I'm Chloe, 23 years old, and the house I live in is more than just a place to live. It's also the place that holds my most precious memories with my mother. My grandmother left this house to me in her will, and since my mother passed away from cancer, this has become my safe haven. My mother, a strong and caring woman, has always been the center of my life. No matter how brutal the battle against cancer was, she kept her spirits up, always putting me first. When my mother passed away, I felt like I lost the biggest fulcrum in my life. But this house, with family photos on the walls, my mother's old books on the shelves, and the scent of pine from the floors, helps me feel like my mother is always by my side. Every corner of the house reminds me of the beautiful memories my mother and I shared. The evenings reading books by the fireplace, the time she taught me how to plant flowers in the garden, and even the hot summer days when she worked my favorite iced lemon dish. After Mom left, it was just me and Dad, Michael. He lives in another part of town, but we still keep up the habit of meeting every Friday night. I often bring along Dad's favorite lasagna from a nearby restaurant, and we watch old movies together, a way to refresh Mom's memories. Those evenings were rare moments when I felt the family bond was still intact, even though the pain of losing my mother still lingered in my heart. However, that seemingly peaceful life began to change when my father decided to remarry. Although I always wanted my father to be happy, I could not have imagined that the appearance of Samantha and her 2 stepchildren would completely disrupt my life. Little did I know that this safe house, where I had always felt close to my mother, would become the epicenter of conflicts and challenges to come. Everything began to change one Friday evening when I went to my dad's house as usual. But this time, it was no longer the peaceful evening I expected. When I entered, I saw my father nervously walking around in the living room, and on the chair was a woman I had never met. "Chloe, I want you to meet Samantha," he said with some hesitation. "She is Dad's fiancée." I was dumbfounded. How could Dad hide this from me? And since when were you ready to remarry? Samantha looked impeccable, dressed impeccably, hair smooth and a smile that seemed carefully practiced. She stepped forward and held out her hand. "It's nice to meet you, Chloe. Your father talks a lot about you." I tried to smile, but inside I was full of confusion and restlessness. Even though I tried to convince myself that my dad deserved happiness after all those years of loneliness, I couldn't shake the feeling of insecurity. I began to feel that Samantha's appearance would not only change my father's life, but also affect mine. When she revealed that she had 2 sons, Ethan and Logan, I felt like I was being pushed away from the little connection my dad and I had tried to maintain. "They are wonderful boys, you will love them," she said softly. But the way she said it was as if I had no choice but to accept. In American culture, where personal independence and relationship boundaries are valued, Chloe being forced to accept a new family without preparation or consultation is a turnoff for the audience. Empathetic. Chloe needs to set clear boundaries with her dad and Samantha and make sure these changes don't disrupt her control over her life. Advice for Chloe is to talk frankly with her father about her feelings. She needed to emphasize that, while she supported his well-being, her home, an important part of her mother's legacy, must be respected. Setting boundaries early will help Chloe avoid unnecessary hurt and conflict later on. After the first meeting, things progressed faster than I could have imagined. Within just a few months, Samantha and her 2 boys, Ethan and Logan, moved in with my dad. I tried to convince myself that this was an opportunity to create a new family relationship, but in reality, it was more difficult than I thought. Ethan, an 8-year-old boy, seems only interested in video games, while Logan, 6 years old, is always running around and can't sit still. The 2 of us often make noise, and sometimes I feel like I'm entering a chaotic playground every time I stop by my dad's house. I try to be supportive because I want to help Dad be happy. Samantha kept asking me to watch the kids while she was busy with wedding plans. At first, I didn't think much about it. "Chloe, sweetie, you need a little help," Samantha said, her tone sweet but filled with pressure. "Michael and I have an important meeting with the wedding planner. Can you look after the 2 kids for a while?" I agreed, thinking this was just a one-off. But those one-offs quickly turned into an ongoing series of requests. I started to feel more like a reluctant nanny than a stepsister. The day of the wedding, I was hoping everything would go well. But when Ethan and Logan started being mischievous, throwing food at each other in the middle of the party, I was forced to intervene to prevent a huge mess. "Stop it, you two," I said, trying to stay calm. But Samantha's reaction shocked me. She pulled me aside and whispered harshly, "Don't ever discipline my child. They are none of your business." That was the first time I saw Samantha's true face, a mother who protects her children at all costs, even if it means trampling on others. In American culture, independence and boundaries in family relationships are highly valued. Samantha's actions were not only disrespectful, but also intentionally took advantage of Chloe. The audience easily sympathizes with Chloe because she is trying to maintain a healthy relationship with her father, but is placed in an unfair situation. Advice for Chloe is that she needs to stand up for her rights. She should have a frank talk with her father, asking him to intervene to establish clear boundaries with Samantha. At the same time, Chloe needs to consider keeping her distance from this new family to protect her peace and self-esteem. After the wedding, things between Samantha and I became more tense. Initially, I thought that after a while, everything would stabilize and I could get used to my new life and new family. But no, the reality is the opposite. Samantha, soon after marrying my father, seemed to treat my house as if it were her own, and I was just an uninvited guest. Her demands became unreasonable and coercive. "Chloe, can you help me watch Ethan and Logan for a while? I need to run some errands." This question becomes a familiar question every time she has personal matters. It felt like I was part of the family, but I was considered an outsider, someone who had no right to make any decisions in my house. I started to realize that I was being taken advantage of. One evening, when I had just finished work, I received a call from Samantha. "Chloe, can you come pick up some items from the store for me? I can't go because of the children." At that time, I was tired after a long work week. I want to refuse, but I can't. I don't want to make things more stressful. But when I got to the store, I saw I wasn't the only one working hard. Samantha and my dad are enjoying a romantic dinner at the restaurant again. This made me feel like I was completely abandoned. I am my father's only daughter, but now I feel like I no longer have a place in his life. This feeling became even more evident when I saw Samantha and my father gathered together, laughing and joking like a real family, while I was just a bystander. American culture has always emphasized independence and self-determination. In this case, Samantha's actions were clearly exploitation and disrespect of Chloe. The audience will see that Chloe did the right thing when she realized she was being taken advantage of and needed to stand up for her rights. Advice for Chloe is to be stronger and not let herself be taken advantage of anymore. She needs to sit down and have an honest conversation with her father and Samantha, asking for respect and space. Sometimes, withdrawing and keeping your distance is the only way to protect yourself and your happiness. She can ask her dad to create a clear division between family relationships and spending time for herself, which will help her regain a sense of control over her life. The tension between Samantha and I was growing, but what really shocked me was the way my father stood on the sidelines, silently observing everything that happened without intervening. One Friday evening, I stopped by as usual with lasagna from Mom and Dad's favorite restaurant. I was hoping we could enjoy dinner and a movie together like the old days. But when I walked into the house, Samantha was sitting comfortably in the chair my mother used to sit in, holding her phone, and Ethan and Logan were running around loudly in the living room. My dad sat there, quietly reading something on his tablet, as if he didn't see everything that was going on. "Tiffany, you should have called before coming," Samantha said, her eyes coldly looking at me. I stood there, confused and hurt. "Call first? But this is the Friday that Dad and I always spend together," I replied, trying to stay calm. But Samantha just curled her lips and smiled faintly. "Everything is different now. Our family needs new traditions." The word family that Samantha emphasized was like a knife stabbing me in the heart, as if I no longer belonged to that family. My father, who always taught me to stand up for myself, now says nothing, does not protect me, just sits there in silence. When Samantha suddenly announced that they were going out to dinner, leaving me to look after the 2 children, I realized that they saw me as a free maid. Nothing more, nothing less. In American culture, where personal independence and control over one's life are valued, Chloe's treatment was unacceptable. Samantha's actions were not only disrespectful, but also a usurpation of Chloe's time and autonomy. The audience easily feels sympathy for Chloe when she is trying to maintain a relationship with her father, but is placed in an unfair situation. Chloe's advice is that she needs to confront her father directly, emphasizing that Samantha is encroaching on her rights. At the same time, she needs to consider setting clearer boundaries or seeking outside support, such as a lawyer or family counselor, to protect her legacy and private life. Tensions reached a boiling point when Samantha began using my house as if it were her own property, and even left her 2 children in my house without prior notice. One Wednesday night, after a stressful day at work that included 3 presentations and a crashed computer system, I drove home only to find Samantha's SUV parked in the driveway. She was busy pushing Ethan and Logan into my door, waving absent-mindedly. "Perfect, you came back just in time," she said, her voice filled with complacency. "I have a spa appointment and dinner with Michael. They will have dinner in about an hour. I'll look after them for you." I stood still, exhausted and angry. "No," I said, my voice firmer than ever. "I'm not your babysitter. I had a long day at work, and I don't agree with this." Samantha stopped, her face red with anger. "I can't believe your attitude, Chloe. You will regret this behavior." She dragged Ethan and Logan back to the car, not forgetting to leave tire marks in my driveway. That evening, I received a call from my father. He yelled at me as soon as I picked up the phone. "Chloe, what's wrong with you? How can you treat Samantha like that? She's crying." I tried to explain, but he didn't listen and hung up, leaving me sitting in the kitchen, feeling completely betrayed. My father, who was once my biggest supporter, now took Samantha's side without even thinking about my feelings. In American culture, where the values of respect and independence are highly valued, Samantha's actions and the lack of support from Chloe's father are unacceptable. The audience can easily root for Chloe because she did the right thing by setting boundaries and protecting her right to self-determination. My advice to Chloe is that she should start thinking about taking legal action. She needs to protect her assets and personal life from this abuse and consider minimizing contact with Samantha and her father to preserve her peace. Sometimes keeping distance is the only way to restore balance in life. A week after the confrontation, I returned home on Friday night, carrying a bag of food and a bottle of wine to reward myself after a tiring week of work. But when I entered the house, I didn't feel the peace I expected. Instead, I heard laughter and the sound of the TV coming from the living room. My heart pounded. Was there someone in my house? I quickly opened the door to find Ethan and Logan sitting haphazardly on my sofa, surrounded by empty snack packages and juice spilled everywhere. "What are you guys doing here?" I asked, my voice filled with surprise and concern. Ethan didn't bother to look up from the phone, just said nonchalantly, "Mom, leave us here." She said she had the key. I was stunned. Immediately, I remembered the spare key I gave my dad in case of emergency. Turns out, Samantha used it without consulting me. "When will she come back?" I asked, filled with anxiety. Logan smiled and replied, 2 more weeks. They are going to Hawaii for their honeymoon." The boy's answer shocked me. My father and Samantha left the 2 children in my house without saying a word, not caring whether I agreed or not. Angry and unable to stay silent any longer, I immediately called Samantha. When she answered the phone, her voice rang out mockingly. "Oh, Chloe, don't overdo it. I don't have anything important to do. Consider this a way to practice motherhood." Her words were like fuel poured into the fire. I hung up, but not before recording the entire conversation. Then I called my dad. Instead of apologizing, he just said, "You make things complicated. This is not a big deal. If you don't want to look after the kids, hire a nanny." In American culture, where the value of respect and autonomy is placed first, this action of Samantha and her father is unacceptable. Chloe was not only taken advantage of, but also treated disrespectfully in her own home. Advice for Chloe is that she needs to stand up to protect her rights more strongly. She was right to record the conversation as evidence. Next, Chloe should seek a lawyer to ensure that Samantha and her father cannot continue to use her house as a place of convenience for them. More importantly, she needs to establish clear boundaries, not only to protect the home, but also to assert her independence and value in this family relationship.